Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So in this video, we are going to start talking about object-oriented programming, at least the introduction. But for us to understand object-oriented programming, which is the core of all object-oriented programming classes or frameworks, we need to understand the basics first. At the bottom of any object-oriented programming, we have what we call a class. Now, let's go ahead and use an analogy because I think this is the best way for us to really grasp this idea of classes and objects and so forth. It's a very crucial one, so I really want to take the time to give you as many tools as possible. That way you have a really strong understanding of what a class is. All right, so the analogy here is a very simple one, which is a microphone. I love microphones. In fact, I use them every day to record courses such as this one here. So we have this microphone here. Now, the microphone in the real world, we call it an object. Just like a car is an object, your chair, your desk, your phone, those are objects in the real world. But the idea here is that the question that we should ask ourselves is that how did the microphone become a microphone? That is the question, indeed. So if we go back to see how the microphone became a microphone, of course, there's a lot of details to create a microphone. There's a lot of things that go into actually having a microphone, right? But let's, for simplicity here, what are we going to do? We are going to abstract out all of that and just focus on the structural or the design of the microphone, if that makes any sense. Okay, so before the microphone became a microphone, somebody or a team of people had to come together and design that microphone. Essentially, they had to put together a blueprint, the model or a model of what would end up being a microphone. And once they had that blueprint, then they were able to send it to where? Well, to the manufacturer or the factory where they had all the tools and all the parts needed to actually build the microphone, right? In order to have a microphone, we have to have a blueprint, the model, we could call it, and then this blueprint, the model, is taken to the manufacturer who will know exactly what to do in order to create the actual microphone, which is the object in this case that we can just buy and start utilizing it. Now, with that analogy, so we said here we have this blueprint. In this case, the blueprint in programming is what we call a class, right? Which is what it's taken, forced to the manufacturer. We manufacture it into making an actual object, right? So the actual mic is the object. Now, this very simple concept here is the core of any object-oriented programming language, which usually is OOP. So it's called Object-Oriented Programming Language. This is the concept. So we have a class. We use this class to then create what we call objects. The distinction here is that this blueprint can be used as many times as we wish to create as many objects possible. To add to this analogy, you can look at how an architect puts together a blueprint of a house, and then with only one blueprint, he or she can actually make 100 copies of those and send them out to all the constructors around town or in the country, and they will build that house. So the blueprint is the class, and the house is indeed the object, the actual thing, if you will. So we have the blueprint, the class, and then we have the actual object. That's it. That's the simplicity of things. So classes, to give a little bit of context here again, classes or a class is a template, a blueprint for creating objects, the real thing. So without classes, we don't have objects because we need to have that map, that blueprint. Now let's look at the class's anatomy because this is very important. So if we look at the blueprint, if we look, for instance, at the blueprint of the mic, you'll notice that the mic has properties or attributes, okay? So it could have color, names, mic type, size, circumference, so many attributes and properties, okay? But it could also have methods. And now we are going back to what does the mic do? What are the properties or what are the functions that it can do? Well, a mic, it can turn on, it can turn off, we can set the volume, we can set the gain, mute, and so many other things as well. So these are characteristics of our blueprint of our class, which means with those characteristics, we can then create as many objects, as many real-world mics as we want. All of them, of course, will have those properties and methods too. And this, my friend, is the basics, the fundamentals, the core of what we call object-oriented programming, the understanding of these building blocks. So classes are the building blocks, if you will, of the object-oriented programming paradigm. This is a very important concept. A lot of people get confused with this concept, but if you look at it under this light, then you notice that it's not as complicated as it's made out to be. Okay? Perfect. I'll see you next.